Elsewhere, the African Export-Import Bank, or the Afrexim Bank as it's more commonly known, has lined up $1.5 billion in credit lines and guarantees to help Zimbabwe's economy recover. President Emerson Mnangagwa met the Afrexim Bank president in Harare earlier on Tuesday. CGTN's Farai Mwakutuya has the details on what those funds will be used for.
The $1.5 billion credit line is over and above the $600 million facility extended in September. That loan was to help Zimbabwe unclog a foreign payments backlog caused by a liquidity crunch. During its years of economic turmoil, Zimbabwe has had few friends. One exception is the Cairo-based Pan-African lender. It put up a $500 million facility to back bond notes which have been used in the country since 2016.
It is actually doing the job of the central bank. In a dollarized economy, it will be very, very difficult to sustain the monetary system without liquidity support, which Afrexim Bank has been doing.
Afrexim Bank has also pledged to provide guarantees to investors willing to bet on the troubled Southern African nation. Zimbabwe has begun implementing a raft of reforms to reopen industries, create employment, and restore international confidence.
Zimbabwe is a potential country. It has got vast potential coming from the rich endowments in resources. So any country or any institution which is forward-looking would want to assist such a country, because from that potential, the capacity to generate foreign currency to repay the loans is obviously there. So that is very crucial at a time when all other people are looking, or all other institutions are looking at the country risk of Zimbabwe and attaching a high risk tag to the extent they will not be able to assist, to offer financial assistance to the country at the moment.
The cash injection is more good news for President Emerson Mnangagwa's new government, following a $153 million loan from China to upgrade its main airport.
Earlier this week, the Bankers Association of Zimbabwe agreed to accept 99-year leases as collateral. That should clear a funding hurdle for resettled black farmers who previously battled to access loans. Government has also slashed platinum mining royalties to 2.5%, down from 10%, a move that's expected to stimulate an increase in production. Farai Mwakutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
All right then, so lots of changes both in monetary policy, fiscal policy, and of course the economic side as well. Let's get the latest on this. Farai Mwakutuya joins us now from Zimbabwe's capital with more data on this. So Farai, let's start with that $1.5 billion number. It's about 9% of Zimbabwe's GDP. It would raise the country's external debt by about 20% to nearly $9 billion. What is the price of all this debt?
Well, Rama, the fine print, that is the fine print that everyone is trying to lay their hands on and understand just the terms and conditions of this loan. But what I suspect, or what many people expect here, is that given the history that Zimbabwe's had with Afrexim Bank and the relationship that exists, this will be a very concessionary loan. We don't expect that this money will be, doled out in one tranche. It is most likely to be handed out in phases, particularly into productive and foreign currency generating businesses, creating the capacity for Zimbabwe to be able to pay back. I think in many ways Zimbabwe wants to be able to be more productive, to get its industries going so it can be able to repay and meet some of its obligations, to service its debt, but it requires a bit of a cash boost to be able to do that, and this is what this injection will probably go towards helping. Zimbabwe will also most likely look to leverage, or has probably leveraged its vast mineral resources, in particular chrome, to be able to secure this loan. So it is a loan that Zimbabwe desperately needs. It will go a long way in terms of stabilizing the situation here, and we know that one of the areas as well that we've been battling with here is the liquidity crisis. So in terms of stabilizing the Nostro situation, in terms of speeding up international payments, these funds will assist in doing that and getting things ticking, pushing this impetus, getting things going quite quickly, Rama, which is what we're looking for here.
Indeed, all year, and in fact probably more than that, we've been talking about this cash crisis, this lack of currency, hard cash notes that actually has blighted the economy. To what extent, ever since Robert Mugabe's ouster, has that problem eased?
Well, Rama, I know that, immediately after the inauguration of President Emerson Mnangagwa, there were a couple of banks who started dispensing US dollars, not bond notes, physical US dollar notes through the ATM, something that hadn't happened here for almost a year. But that was quite an isolated development. And, we've since gone back to the situation where there are long queues at the banks, and particularly now as we head to the festive season where there is this huge demand for cash going into the holiday season. So, by their own admission, by his own acknowledgement, the finance minister told a breakfast meeting of business people at a post-budget review last week that I attended, and he said that there is no short solution in sight for this cash crisis, that it's not going to happen overnight. And when you look at it, he is quite right, because the biggest challenge that we have here is the fact that we're not producing enough. We're not producing enough and therefore exporting enough to be able to earn foreign currency. So even if Zimbabwe were to get a huge windfall of $2 billion, for instance, as cash into the economy, most of that money will very quickly end up outside of Zimbabwe's borders, because retailers, traders and other people will need to go there to import goods that aren't produced here and land us back in the very same problem that we're in now, Rama.
Indeed. One last question for you, Farai. An IMF team was doing the country sometime in the course of the month. Is there any development on that front?
Well, no details yet as to when they're coming, but we certainly know that they are on their way, and it's very crucial that they come at this point. The Finance Minister, Patrick Chinamasa, pointed out in his budget presentation that, he is very keen to re-engage with the IMF to restart and resume that Lima debt clearance plan. Zimbabwe owes quite a significant amount. You've already alluded to the billions of dollars that we owe. But Chinamasa and the central bank governor had come up with a debt clearance plan approved by Zimbabwe's bilateral and multilateral, creditors and people that it owes money, and that is what we are keen to get restarted here. It entails reforms that are already underway, but it also entails Zimbabwe to make some payments. I think about 1.2 billion to the AFDB, as well as the World Bank and the European Investment Bank. So those are payments that Zimbabwe needs to make. This is a process that Zimbabwe wants to resume and get going again, and so that's why this IMF team is coming here to compare notes and hopefully get moving again on these reforms, Rama.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. That's Farai Mwakutuya there live in Harare, Zimbabwe.